Let's tilt that forward a little.
If we scoot our chairs back so we're not sitting on the table, we will probably actually be pretty good.
Let's do that.
Again, if the environment will work with you, work the environment.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for your patience in letting us get this set up. We didn't have quite everything as we wanted to, but we're going to jump right into it so we could use your time. We appreciate you being here. I am Lewanika. I am one half of the team over at Tabletop Journeys, or at least the on-air half of Tabletop Journeys. I am joined by my good friends, new and old, the folks at We Can Be Heroes, fantastic game creators and gamers who we met last year right here at Catacon, and we play tested their game as it was in its very early stages. Absolutely love the game. Chose to go ahead and continue that relationship. We talked. We've had them on our show, followed their progress, and the idea for this particular panel was to talk about the process of taking your great ideas, bringing them to market, specifically with a crowdfunding model, and all the pieces and parts, trials, tribulations, foils, and foibles. Before we go further into that, I would like to give everything over to the team over here and let them introduce themselves, and so you can get to know them, and then we'll get going.
Well, thank you for having us. Let's just go down the line. I'm Pete Schultz, developer with BudStuff Games.
Yeah, hi, I'm Spencer Reichley. One of the developers, lead game designer for BudStuff Games.
I'm Ryan Weisner. I am a developer and I guess editor for the book as well.
As well as the spreadsheet man.
As well as the spreadsheet
man.
Yeah. Unfortunately, manage the finances too.
Yeah,
Not that we have many. But,
that's the tough part.
Yeah.
With Tabletop Journeys, we do a lot of different things. As far as our on-air stuff, I am on-air talent. I am one of the GMs for our actual plays and one of the primary GMs for our Patreon games. So do a lot with virtual gaming. I also am the one who tends to go to a lot of the conventions, do our live sessions, and promote the channel. Josh is one of our lead writers. He is our layout person. He is our guru when it comes to all things tech and sound and such like that. So my half is more on the creative and idea side, and then the marketing and sales side of the business element. And since a lot of what we're talking about today is business in nature, I'm definitely going to go into that as part of what I do. Forgive me, my notes are actually on my phone, so I'm not like checking messages and not being engaged.
Quit texting.
Yeah, I know, right? But my daughter is gorgeous. One of the first things when we talk about tabletop gaming and taking your ideas from that creativity space, when it's, hey, I'd like to do this thing, is we have to get into and talk about inspiration. Like, what inspires you to create? Where do you get your inspirations? We need to talk about how that works and what that mechanism is and what kind of ideas you have. I know some of this story, and those who were frequenters of our channel can go back in our history and listen to that. But for the audience here and the new audience on air, take it away, guys. So, kind of tell us about your journey with creativity and inspiration. This is a big game. I'm assuming it's not your first game that you guys have kind of done. Maybe the first one is a big project for reals, but certainly you've done some things in the past. I'm like,
actually, this is our first game. Yeah, first
Right
shot at it right off the bat. Yeah.
Started out by calling me a liar. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, we've done a ton of homebrew D&D stuff, throughout the years of playing together, and then we just we wanted a superhero system, and everything just was either super crunchy, like Champions, Mutants and Masterminds, great games, but just like too much math for me. And then like Masks, you got the other end of the spectrum there with a super narrative focus, which is fun, but again, not for me. So we decided to just dedicate a few years of our lives to creating a superhero TTRPG that was more to our liking.
I think its infancy started kind of in COVID, right? You and Mikey just had a bunch of extra time, and I think it was just spitballing superpowers, and it all started with a Google Doc and some superpowers, and
just how do we offer a lot of creative options for players, and then we got to a point where we were like, all right, this is like something, this is really cool, we're playtesting it as a group, just like, we decided to make a business out of it because it turned out to be really fun and really good and well put together, like kind of at like its earliest stages.
I think the turning point for me when I knew we had something interesting, because our early stages of it, like we come from a 5e background. We had not branched out into a lot of other RPGs before that. It felt like a little bit like 5e in a superhero space. And then we kind of retooled some things and came up with the large zones and reworked our action economy. And once we did that, I felt like this is unique. This is something that I want to share with other people. And that was a big aha moment, I think.
Yeah, and I think to go off of that, the big turning point was we kind of came up with some very clear goals as far as what would make this feel more like a superhero game. And following those kind of guiding goals really just led us to the path where we found something that was really fun. So with that, it just started to take, leaps and bounds forward.
Excellent. You highlighted a couple things, goals being number one. So when you have the inspiration, wherever that comes from, it might be media, it might be specifically, it could be television shows you watch, it could be movies, it could be games you've played in or games you've heard about. Wherever that inspiration is, if you're a creative mind and you're like, yeah, I want to do this thing and I think I want to do this, the next step is that turning point that everyone spoke about. It is about, okay, is this just a hobby for us to hang out with our friends and do this, or are we really into this as a business? So you have to do that. And I think what follows that is selecting your team. It is largely going to be the people who kind of develop the idea, but then you bring in other folks. Like you said, it started with two of you and then kind of grew from there. The team you select is probably, in my estimation, outside of the original idea and concept and that goal you set, is probably the single most important piece in all of this.
100%.
If you do not select the right team for a host of reasons that we're going to get into here in just a moment, you are probably not going to achieve that goal. I'm not saying it's impossible. Any number of things could make it possible, but generally speaking, the wrong team nets the wrong results. That has been my experience in life. Would you guys agree with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I've had jobs where it's, the bad teammates, and I was a little worried going into business with, we've got 6 people at BudStuff Games. Going into business with 5 of my close friends.
Yep.
It's just like, is this stupid? Am I going to lose 5 of my close friends like over something? And there's still time. We could end up hating each other's guts.
Hey, we got years yet.
Yeah, we got years.
Not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But
There's a fight yet to come.
exactly. We've had plenty of disagreements, but nothing too severe.
So far it's remained civil.
Yeah. And you got to be adaptable, and you want teammates who are adaptable as well.
But yeah, make sure when you are selecting your team, you're getting people who are level-headed, not only that are going to bring assets to your team, but are going to bring a business mindset and that can roll with criticism, that are adaptable to taking constructive criticism and also dealing it out in a way that is not going to break down your team dynamic, because that's important. Like we have to work together to get this thing out, and there's going to be disagreements, and we'll have to work through it civilly and come up with a solution. So
We did have one question. And
Questions at the end?
Throughout, let's have a conversation.
We're loose guys. Let's talk.
yeah.
Well, so you bring up the team, right? And usually, if this is your first, right, and you're trying to do it as a business, depends on what your individual backgrounds may be, but the unknown, right? How do you know what questions to ask, to find the right team, to set up for success, those kind of things, right?
So for me, and I can speak about Tabletop Journeys in specific, and a very similar question was asked to me yesterday when I was walking the floor. Somebody asked, well, what's the right team number? Like, how many people do you want on your team? And I said, that's a great question. I'm going to think about that, and I'm going to get some feedback from these folks because we have two very different sized teams. You guys are what, 70,
Six,
60 deep? And I don't know about your collective dynamics, but we at this point are just mainly the two of us. But even when we were the three of us, we also had our wives that were really part of the team. So, that's a lot of people involved in a fledgling company and a fledgling business. That's a lot of separate ideas and such. So, when I was asked that question, I said, it's going to vary based on who you select the number. And as far as what you select for, that's going to vary on who you are and what your goals are. So if you have that creativity and you have that goal, that really sets the stage for what you need. So when Josh and I first put together Tabletop Journeys, and it did start with just Josh and I, but we very early brought on Glenn. The factor for us was, what are our areas of expertise? We actually self and Dreamscape projected our company. Let's say we are moderately successful 10 years out. It is not just our nucleus, but we actually have a company now that's doing things. What area are you going to be the VP of? That was kind of our mindset. What is your area of expertise? What are you going to be in charge of outside of lead writer or lead designer on product X, Y, or Z? And, for me, it was, I know where my areas of expertise are. It's in sales. It's in marketing. It's in those types of things. I have, depending on who you ask, some talent as far as being a spokesperson and being on camera and being in voice and doing those things. And then the writing and the lead design piece, we share those duties pretty equally. But as far as managing a business, we had to figure out where we were going to fit. And as we were putting those pieces together, putting together our team was really filling in the things that we didn't have. None of us are particularly experts in human resources. So when we projected that plan out, we actually said, as we grow, who are we going to tap to be our human resources person? I actually have that person in mind. I've worked with this person for the last 20 years at various companies, and a good friend, a great mind for that type of work. Our goals also included, if we start hiring people, what are we doing with our ideas? How are we going to hire people? We have a very simple goal. We will never do unpaid interns. We were always going to pay a fair wage for what people do. If we don't have it in the budget, we let people know that up front, and we simply won't solicit that work in that way. So these are core value things that we kind of put together, and we just put together a team that was about those core values.
I think as far as selecting the right people, the most valuable aspect of our team is that we're willing to learn how to do things we don't know how to do. So just saying, okay, we might not know how to do this, but we can sure as hell figure it out. And being part of the Indie Game Developer Network, IGDN, has been incredible. Those people, you have any question, you ask them, they're so happy to help with their just decades of knowledge. And being part of a member of GAMA, the Game Manufacturers Association, same deal there. They've got, great knowledge of how the industry actually works.
Yeah, and I think when we were like you talked about designing or figuring out your roles ahead of time, we tried to do that. I set up a document. I'm like, hey guys, let's all try to figure out what roles we're going to take in this business. And I don't think any of us actually filled it out. I think we were just like, I don't know. We don't know what we're doing really. This is our first time starting a business, designing a game. Right. And then we just kind of fell into those roles. Yeah. We kind of figured out what we were good at, what we were passable at.
Forged by need, really. When a thing arises, we talk about it, and somebody usually will just step up and say, I feel like I can take this on. So we learned, because we were friends first, business partners second. So we learned as we went. So the team selection process was really more like we know each other. We know that we like each other's ideas, I guess.
We can be creative together.
We can be creative together. And the business aspect of it all kind of fell into place afterwards. Like Spencer is a great project manager. He's always coming up with ways to manage tasks and make sure that things are getting done. I kind of fell into a finance role because I spend a lot of time looking at spreadsheets. I like building spreadsheets, so that works for me. I feel like Pete is excellent at play testing. He's like our resident min-maxer, and if a rule is going to break something in the game, like he will figure it out. This is going to break, this aux power, this is going to fail if we ramp that up. It just feels unbalanced, and he has a natural intuition for that. So we kind of fell into the roles as we went.
Yeah. We often say on the show that Spencer is the Josh of BudStuff Games. So, because he's it's the same thing. He's great at project management, and I can be a force too. We also try to do redundancy. Even if one person learns a thing, the goal is within as short a possible time as possible, with all things being equal, is at least one other person also learns that thing. That's tough. So one of the things that gets very hard when you're a fledgling company and a game company in specific is it's hard to build in that redundancy if you're a team of one. Mm-hmm. It is difficult when you're a team of two, and it is moderately easier when you're a team of three. It would be
still wonderful. Hard when you're a team of six.
Yeah,
somehow.
It is building that redundancy. We spoke just as we were getting ready to go on air. I don't video edit. I don't consider myself someone who can video edit. Yet, for the last month and a half, I've been learning to video edit. I don't have all the fancy tools on my computer that Josh has, but I can do enough to at least get my vlog on YouTube regularly. Those are things that I can learn, and I'm learning it piece at a time, because at some point, Josh needs to be able to take a vacation. And yet, the lights have to stay on, which means now that we are a team of two, I have to be able to do that. So I have to get good enough with some oversight, things like that. We build in tools, like Josh will sometimes record himself doing certain things. So I can, because our schedules don't always line up, watch him do something on one screen while I'm trying to follow that on another to learn how to do it. We call that our run book. So we set up mechanisms for us to share knowledge. When I started posting to multiple Facebook pages, I would keep a list of the places that I post to that are amiable to having to post being shared about our games, our products, our shows. So because I naturally do that kind of thing, reach out and do that very easily, I put into our run book, here's the list of the things that we will share with, so that if I'm on vacation or at a catacon for a weekend, these things still continue. So team building becomes important. Challenges and solutions is one of the things that I think is important for this process. And actually the big factor that I wanted to highlight in this session with everybody. And some of the challenges are fears. I'm not good at a thing. I don't think I would want to do that, or what have you. Some of those challenges could be just various things that stress folks. Some people may not be good at social interactions on social platforms, but still be very good in person. Or maybe they're not good at social interactions in person, but they're okay or good at social interactions on platforms. And they can be big challenges. And in some cases, there can be roadblocks. Sometimes there might be physical ones. Technology is not good. There are certain things I cannot run on my computer because of the age of my computer, right? And so, or by cost, there's some things I just don't have because of cost, right? So you do have to identify those when they come up and then find solutions together. As you guys were growing and building, what were some of the challenges you all encountered and some of the solutions you came up with?
Man,
Organization.
yeah,
Organization was a big one up top.
Yeah.
and personal life changes was a big one. We had
Time management.
so many things come up during like our Kickstarter stretch and like the whole time. I mean, we had two babies. You each had a
Yep.
baby during the last few months.
Mm-hmm.
I went down with chronic illness that took me out for a couple months. And I was hospitalized the last 2 weeks of our Kickstarter campaign, which was insane. So stressful. I'm dying in a hospital bed. Just oh my God, come on. Are we gonna hit our goal? Are we gonna hit our
Yeah.
goal? And then other life changes
Not
throughout
the last 2 days.
the-
You guys,
No.
you guys,
Stretch goals.
you
Yeah.
stretch goals. I was gonna
Stretch
say,
goals.
Yeah.
don't let
That's
him
right.
fool
we
you.
funded in the
They
first-
funded
yeah,
quick
yeah,
now,
yeah.
quick
10
now.
hours.
Yeah, that's the first 10 hours. Yeah. So we were super surprised about that too. But
I think that's a
Very
fear that we had was, is this going to fund?
Yeah, pressing the button was
Yeah.
tough.
yeah,
I'm gonna get to the actual crowdfund piece in a bit, but
cool. Yeah.
yeah, but absolutely.
I do want to touch on
Yeah.
up top organization was a big one for us. We found that I think Trello is what we ended up using, but finding an organizational tool to help coordinate efforts is vital if you're working as a team.
And that helped us find our roles, we were talking about earlier, just an organizational software like Trello, where you're creating cards for each task that needs to be done, and then tasks within that task. You can assign them to different members of your team. That helped us find our roles and
Game changer.
Yeah, it was an absolute game changer.
We use Asana, which has very
Fantastic.
similar features.
Yeah, we use that.
And
day job,
most of that decision was more cost basis. It's okay, we have a page, we open up a channel, we have a lot of things that need to be done. We have a Patreon that pays X. Currently, we're building it, but it's expensive to keep some of the best tools cost money, or the best features on even moderate tools cost money. So those are all things that you do have to build into your plan. What is it going to take to organize well, keep things together? How much space do you need on a Google Drive? Google Drive was the thing that we used the most because it was easily accessible by multiple devices without costing much per device, right? So that was very helpful. But I had not been a user of Google much prior to us building our company. So I had to learn this tool. Fortunately, it's fairly intuitive, so it was easy, but I had to train up on it. So organization was big. Asana, a godsend, as far as where things go in the production schedule for our episodes. And then as far as our writing, we use Asana more for the podcast, but I can definitely see as you get more and more people, Google would not be effective. So the size of your team will dictate the type of tools you will need to engage with to be successful. Any questions about that?
Do you all still have your day jobs, or is some left and some not? So that this is for now part-time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I think everybody at this table is
Yeah.
still working a day job and pursuing our dream of being a full-time game designer. But
Yep.
I don't ever see myself working full-time doing this. Just it's a passion, and it'd be cool if we made some money on it on the side. So far, we haven't. Full transparency. We did really good on our Kickstarter, but that covered the extra art that we ordered for the book because we wanted it to be as beautiful as possible. Our artist is incredibly talented. Shout out Max Bear, our illustrator.
Fair wages for good work.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I will rarely go into any situation where I'm talking to people and I say to people, this is the one thing you must do. But I will say that this is the hill I will always die on. We will never be a good community if we are not paying fair wages for good work. That does have to be negotiated. Everybody has budgets. People have things they're willing to do, but don't allow anybody you're associating with to sell themselves short.
Yeah.
Just don't allow them to, because if they're willing to do that, there's a built-in grudge at some point. Whether they want that to be there or not, if somebody knowingly sells themselves short, there will always be a bit of a grudge. And I am very cautious about people who say, no, I'll just do it for free. I'm like, I don't like that. So that's my soapbox.
And with art in particular, pay for it. It is so worth the return. It will brand your game. It will give people just a sense of this is the tone, the mood that I can expect. And I think it has been our biggest selling point. The quickest hook. People just see this and go, that is interesting.
And it is also very unique in the space. So like when you see, there are all kinds of games, right? So, but when you see the art that they have been able to commission and get put together, it stands out as, oh, that's that game. Wherever you see it, you're like, oh, that's that game.
Yeah, creating a brand identity is super important for any business, like obviously. And then like if you've got a specific product you're like just banking your entire business model on, like having that brand identity is extremely important. Draws people to Kickstarter too. Once we get to the crowdfunding conversation, like that's a huge draw.
And we're going to jump right into that. I was like, for Tabletop Journeys on our 2 projects ago, one of the things we did very early on just to get placards for our various episodes when they show up in different places, we went with a service that provides artwork. So we did that, and our early projects just utilize that type of art. So we're definitely paying for our artwork and that. And in the pre-AI days, we knew real artists, but they had their contracts, so that art was for us to use. We had the license to alter it in various ways, so we were able to do all the things we wanted to do ethically. In the post-AI days, we actually dropped a couple services that we would use from time to time because they didn't provide us the ability to confirm or at least have any security that AI art was not being used. And I'm not talking about AI tools to adapt and finish. I'm talking about generate, right? While it is true, much AI art can be clearly seen, there are sneaky things out there and people who are good at
better and better.
manipulating. And it is getting harder and harder to see. And so when you find some services, I'm not going to go into names, but there is a major service out there who specifically said, if it's there, it's there. We're not going to give you the ability to filter. We dropped that service.
Just look at the hands.
Yeah.
AI generative art can never do hands. It's hilarious.
They're also bad at integration. You will see items and equipment and detail things that are sunk into a body as opposed to resting on a body. Little things like that come up pretty frequently, but that's going to change. That's only going to last until enough people check, no, that's not good enough, and then it'll get better at that.
Yeah.
So it is important to keep that in mind. But we did go with a service that says you can filter for that. Now, if a given artist lies or does whatever, I don't have the ability to go that deep, but at least I have the ability to show, to document, and feel morally comfortable that I made my best effort. So that's something we did. On our one of our more recent projects, we went a step further. We decided what it would look like. We found all the pictures that we thought fit that art direction. And then we solicited each of the artists from that for all of our commissioned work. So they got commissions and their own art was in the various areas and chapters of the book that was used. So 1, it provides a nice cohesive art direction for the different sections. But 2, now we're remunerating those artists in an even better way. So there are a lot, but that's about budget. That increased what we needed to get from our crowdfund. And so definitely something to bear in mind is how you brand, how you art, taking the good steps based on where your budget is and what you can and can't do. The other factor is maybe you have a person who is an artist on your team. That is another avenue. If you have that, then you might have then you can really limit some of those costs. But again, if the goal is to get some kind of remuneration for your time and your effort, what would they be able to get if they were doing a commission? So things to keep in mind. Moving on to the actual crowdfund piece, because I do want to, again, be cautious of time. Where are we for time? Oh, yeah, we're coming up on it. So for crowdfunding, we initially started with non-crowdfunding models. And then we decided that crowdfunding was definitely the way to go. We kind of knew that fairly early on in our process. We definitely went with Kickstarter. But there are a lot of things that go with that, and there are a lot of challenges. You guys want to jump in here? I mean, you did your first crowdfund after our second.
Right.
So we had a little bit, in fact, you were at a panel we did last year to kind of pick our brains about different things and getting ready for that.
Yeah, it was very valuable.
Yeah. What are some of your learning experiences from the crowdfunding? What's some of the advice you guys might provide?
Well, the approach we took was one that we had seen other people do as well. Give out something for free to get those email addresses. The email addresses is the most important thing. You need a mailing list.
Building the mailing
Yeah,
list.
building the mailing list is the most important thing because those are solid leads. I come from a sales background, so it's leads. Like that's drilled in my brain. Getting those solid leads that you've got a high percentage of converting them. That's the most valuable thing. So we offered a playtest version of the game. Like it was basically the full game at that point, like where we were with it. So not only were we getting emails, but we were also getting feedback from people who were like looking through it. So we're like kind of killing two birds with one stone there. And then we amassed a mailing list of like 260 people or something like that before we launched.
That was our number of backers. We had
Yeah, we had
almost
like
900.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a lot more. So yeah, our conversion rate was decent. I can't remember exactly how many of those followers converted because once we had the mailing list, it was getting them to follow the Kickstarter campaign. So setting up that pre-launch page and then trying to convert those followers, the people that are our mailing list people into our actual followers. So that was engaging that mailing list, sending out updates, letting them know, hey, we're here, we're making progress, we're working towards this, getting your name out there and just letting people know how things are progressing and reminding them this is coming up, guys. So that as soon as you hit go on that Kickstarter page, they are excited to back on day one.
And you know what? Talk about the pre-launch page. You know what really helps that is the art that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Like if you pay for your art, if you pay for good art, art that you're confident in, that builds your brand, that pre-launch page is going to look 10 times better. And it's going to stand out from other people who have similar products out there. So let's face it, the TTRPG market is absolutely oversaturated. So if you stand out with something cool looking and have a good product behind it, that pre-launch page should look pretty solid. And they're pretty easy to set up with some frustrating features that are either missing or
that's a learning curve.
that's
too.
another 20-minute
Going back
conversation.
to the team building piece, having somebody that is at least on the better than average with operating digital tools and the IT bit and the creating pages bit, whether that be more on the layout side or certainly setting up pages with that. They understand the language of licensor terms, like let's go with this crowdfunding page versus another one. All of those things are great. I wish I had actually known when we were doing our crowdfunds more about the email thing, and that's something I'm going to take away from this conversation because we did not do that. We funded our first one in 3 days, like just over 72 hours. It might have been like 72 and a half hours. Our second one took a lot longer to fund, but it was a significantly larger goal. We doubled and a little bit more on our second Kickstarter goal. And we did fund, but it was 12 or 13 days into a 29-day campaign. And that stress level is a whole thing. So as you're doing, when you're ready to go to Kickstarter, the things that I'm taking away from them and our experience is this: build your email list, build that following. One of the things they didn't mention is the fact that these guys here, my dear friends here, they are actually on Facebook with some kind of clip very close to every day of every week. And this was after, this is not only during, but after the following. Now, like I can go to my feed at almost any time. And within a couple of days, I will always see some clip of them, this nice split screen. It's
me and Smiley did, we were doing like a weekly, superhero recap, like superhero news recap thing. And then like doing soft pitches on,
Yep.
following us on social media. And
So,
stuff,
having the desire and ability to generate that kind of engagement with your audience, going to conventions and running play tests and talking to vendors and, all of those types of things are all about it. I love coming to conventions. I love running games. I love playing games. But honestly, for our company, I run a couple games at a convention here at Catacon. I'm only running 2 games, and then we're doing this panel here today. A lot of my time is really spent going around talking to people, the vendors, especially when I'm out of the area we live in, so I can talk to other people and talking to the gamers in general, just getting to know the kinds of things they're looking for. So there's a lot of that goes into building that brand and getting that critical mass of a following before that.
should we do questions
Oh,
for
yeah.
the last 5 minutes? But if you want to do
A quick note on that. Social media marketing. Get familiar with using those tools. We used mostly Instagram and Facebook ads to help build up that email list, and then to also get those Kickstarter backers. That's huge. Spencer got very good at that, and then once again reminding them regularly, hey, we're out here, we're getting ready to fund.
On that point, before we jump to questions, I will also say this. When it comes to your advertising budget, be sure that's part of your Kickstarter and crowdfunding goals. Make sure it's part of that, because there are 2 things that will submarine your ability to break even or make profit on any crowdfund. The first is advertising, and the second is shipping. There are a lot of different ways. It's probably a whole different panel on how to manage shipping costs.
Yeah.
But just be sure you cover that, because everybody has a different feeling. Like, I like them when shipping's included. I prefer shipping to be separate. There's a whole lot of things that go into that. So make sure you and your team are really having those discussions. What are you comfortable with? What is your audience comfortable with? That's a question I tend to ask when it comes to crowdfunds. What are you comfortable with regarding shipping? We'll figure out what works for your specific market. The other thing is with advertising, be careful of big advertisers and what they offer and are successful at developing. I'm not going to mention this company by name, but I found through experience on our last Kickstarter that, and they're a very big company, they advertise for some very big and very popular clients. I have seen them do advertising for Critical Role and a few others. They have a large client base that they're very proud of, and they do very well by them. What they don't tell you is their ability to be successful for you is going to be based on scale of money you put in. What we found is they offer an that's a very reasonable in-budget rate, under $1,000. We then found nearly twice, and at some points during our campaign, 3 times a week, they kept asking us for more money so we can do more for you. And what we found was the same money we gave them, we would have done better to just do Facebook advertising. As limited as Facebook advertising is and can be, that same money with Facebook would have been more effective than all of the money we put with them, because what they do is better at scale. If we were doing a $50,000 or $60,000 Kickstarter and we had a budget that was $10,000 or $15,000, then you go with that company. And my experience is those companies are not good at telling you that. So you have to do your research. Look at the clients. If they have nobody that's your approximate group or company's size and scope, then they're probably not for you. And that's a factor to keep in mind, because what we found is we were already in. It was too late to do the other thing, and we had to throw some bad money in after good to get it to a level where we could at least feel okay with the fact that we didn't do great with that. And that is a big factor in profitability, and it cut into some of the things we were able to do, even with a very successful Kickstarter. So keep that advertising thing in mind. Know your pieces of your budget.
Yeah. And you will inevitably be approached by some of these companies as your Kickstarter gets closer to launching. So just do your research.
And so many scams.
They will reach out, and scams. Like,
scams.
lots of them.
So just be very careful, do your research, make sure any company that you do engage with is legitimate.
As the son of an African prince, no African prince I've ever actually met actually emails people for cash. I'm just going to say that out loud. I'll be right up with it. They don't do that. My dad and my uncles get very offended at that. like pick somebody else. Pick a senator's son. I'm a senator's son. I need your cash today. Something. Any questions about this process, crowdfunding, team building, going to market?
Can you speak a little bit about how you do your rights clearances? Like how you make sure you have the rights? You talked about going with an artist.
Yep.
And so how you make sure you have the rights that you need to be successful, and then how you do clearances to make sure you're not violating anybody else.
Yeah, I can't speak to that about our case. So one of the things is we entered into a contract with a service. So a lot of the legalese is done for us, and it very clearly spells out with that company, you have the right to alter this image in any way. You can do this, and we are not even through that service required to list the artist's name. And for us, it's a moral thing, so we choose to. It does allow us, based on our layout goals and such, as to where, but we tend to do it on our business sheet that goes at the front of the book or whatever, sometimes accreditation at the back, but we prefer to accredit our artists. But for that service, we are not necessarily required to, but we do. With the project where we then commissioned the artist, we fashioned a contract, and we are an actual LLC. So we actually have a lawyer, and that we have a retaining fee that we pay once a year, also factored into our crowdfunding budgets, mind you. And then for specific services, we might have to put a little on top of that. And by a little, I mean, we pay for it. But we will then, when it comes to contracting, we create what we call boilerplate language. We know the terms we want to hire somebody under. We very early on figured out this is generally the terms we're always going to go to market with when we try to commission something. So we actually have that language already done. We send it to our lawyer. They read through it. They tell us what changes should be made to make it good for our business and legal. They've done that. We get the lawyer stamp of approval. And now when we engage in the conversation, we will talk about the terms we're talking about. And then when it's all ready to go, they've said, yeah, we have that handshake deal. Then we send them the e-documents. They sign the e-documents. We make sure everything's good. We file that appropriately, keep it with our business paperwork. And that's the deal. Same thing with anything we do. If we are hiring a proofreader or hiring or whatever, there's always a contract, typically an NDA as well. But that's all boilerplate language that has been pre-set up. If you're not an LLC, I don't do business. Don't get into a crowdfund if you're not some kind of LLC. There's way too much risk to make that worth your effort. Way too much risk. I wouldn't be comfortable. Like, we actually recorded our episodes on the podcast, and we said, how much money do we have to put together to get an LLC and a lawyer? And then we're like, okay, let's gather the investment money. But we had that plan and had that set up. It didn't physically take place to about a month after, but that was a goal before we actually turned on the mics the very first day. Because we knew if you're going to be a business, you better be a business. That's a good way to protect yourself. It's a good way to protect your work. It's a good way to protect your team and your family. So that's kind of our take on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you covered everything there.
I was gonna say, we're actually, I'm taking notes over here because we were lucky enough to work with an artist that we were, very familiar with. So there was a certain level of trust and familiarity there. And he was willing to work with us when we're like, well, we want to, modify this asset in this way or that way. So much closer working relationship than you would have with most artists. So I'm filing away some notes in case we need to hire other artists in the future. I'm sure we would like to work with others. So,
well, I would imagine style becomes an issue because artists have specific styles. So if you're hiring somebody to draw or create in that exact style, because now that's your brand identity, that might be something. And not a lawyer. please talk to a lawyer or a professional.
Consult a lawyer.
And
That's a good idea.
definitely, I don't even play one on T. I've never even played a lawyer in a role playing game. Let's be honest. Maybe as an NPC, I ran one, but you know, to me in my head, that's something that becomes a consideration. If work is based on somebody else's work, then what if at some point that originator doesn't like that and there weren't original terms that can present future challenges? That would be my guess. I mean, you work in IP stuff. Would you consider that something you need to consider in some kind of contract?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I know when I work with my clients, my game designer clients, you know, when we talked about, the reason I asked the question about building the team was you may not have all skill sets in-house or be able to ramp up, right? I'm not an artist, right? And so you might not have the artist. You go outside. There's the business aspect of it, right? How much do I pay them? What's the timing review? But then there's the IP rights of it. You know, even if you hire them as a contractor, if they're not a W-2 employee, they don't get copyright until they assign the copyright to you.
Yep.
Right? So it's not a work for hire. You have your contracts have to cover that for any external copyrighted material that gets produced. And then who's going to own that IP right? Are you going to do an LLC? Is it an individual? Are you going to have a separate company that owns the IP? If you plan on doing lots of different games and lots of different spaces, right? Those are all considerations that you have to have. But yeah, no, absolutely. Decide that up front. Find somebody everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows a lawyer who does wills and trusts or whatever.
Yep.
If you're in a space that requires, art, if you're playing an IP, get an IP lawyer.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It's a special skill set.
We were lucky enough that our 7th unofficial bud is a lawyer, our friend John, who declined to be a partner because it would have been a conflict of interest in setting up the LLC and all the advice we get from him.
Yeah.
So that is, as Lewanika pointed out, is very important. Get a lawyer, get them on retainer. We're, again, lucky enough that John's firm is able to, he has so many pro bono hours that he gets to fulfill and just loves to help us out.
Are we way over time?
Yeah, we are way over time.
Oh,
We're going to be
Sorry.
very cognizant, or as much as we can. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, everyone.
We're
Big
all
smiley
around. You
watching.
can
Bye,
see these
smiley.
guys downstairs in the main floor. I'll be rummaging around all day today. I'm going to sit back